of that is their mid jungle right there. So if we could start rolling on the clips, the big thing for me about this team is how effectively their mid jungle duo is able to have a presence in the early game. They have such good synergy and they go in on each other's plays. Torak going in here, but Painful has full faith in Zubak to follow up, flashes straight in. Yes, it's an easy kill, but look at the setup they're running with this. It's a very easy skirmish composition, which means that in these small situations, if it's a 2v2, if it's a 3v3, the amount of burst VNC is able to do at the opening, as you're seeing here, immediately turns the rest of the fight into a huge numbers advantage. And so using that mid-jungle advantage and translating it immediately into lanes is how they get their leads early, and has been the most effective part about them. I remember giving Painful MVP last week on his Nico. The problem happens later, because all these advantages we're seeing right now, the immediate resets they're getting onto the Viego, the really efficient way that they're able to pick off people individually, is a really strong function of their composition in those small scenarios, but in a big 5-on-5, not so much, which means they are going to perform really well in these wide map scenarios, which is what the early game is. You'll get reset onto reset onto reset, so long as you are playing in a completely wide state, but when it gets to a grouping, that's where it can become a problem. How do those groupings end up happening? It's because when it comes to mid-game, they make some rookie mistakes as a 5-man that do lead to you having to team fight your way back in. This being a major one. Look at bot, look at mid. There is no other objective on the map for natives to have to consider except for this big thing happening on top. You're making an aggressive play there, but there's no trade possible elsewhere, so natives are fully free to collapse. It's no longer a 2v2, it's no longer a 3v3, it is a straight 5-man on top side for natives with no punishment possible. They're barely able to get the crash on mid, and this leads to them trying to go into these group 5-on-5s where their composition just cannot function as well. Right? They don't have the beefy front line. You have a Belveth trying to make a pick, a LeBlanc trying to make a pick, a Heimerdinger trying to make a pick. The Varus is going to be best after natives have already offset their own engage. And here, they are against enough range that Varus won't even really get the proper chance. The thing that makes that composition good to get the lead is the exact same thing that makes it horrible in these big 5-on-5s. Again, here, you have the attempts, but it's so much harder for Venom Crest rather than Jhin, Azir, Nocturne, Cassante to get advantages in these massive groupings. You can see how the LeBlanc Belveth would be able to function in 2v2, the mixed damage, the immense amounts of burst on 2 single targets, but you get to the point where you stymie their tempo in the mid game because they make that one big error and they're on the back foot, and the draft that gave them all the advantages, the running theme, ends up being their great Achilles heel. So this is a great team that has a lot of confidence in the synergy they have with each other, but if they don't fix these mid-game scenarios, they're going to struggle against much more experienced teams like natives.
This is the perfect introduction to the league, to this split. It seems like everybody can get on the top 4. We have been talking about non-stop. 7 out of 8 teams, and yesterday it was like, wait, 8 out of 8 teams, and this is beautiful. So this opens up the appetite, which means we gotta show you the menu for today. Let's hit the schedule to understand what we have in store for you. It is going to be the first game of the day, Lightside versus Verdant. We'll start with that one in a few minutes. Ruddy versus Natives, followed by Nord versus DMG, and we'll end it up with the teams that were supposed to be immortal. We're going to be facing each other today, Lionscreed versus Venom Crest. So this is going to be an interesting day. I would say, okay, the match of the day is going to be Lightside versus Verdant, which is the first one, but the last one, it's quite interesting, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
I mean, you can go first, but look,
Yeah,
actually, go for it.
we say like maybe both these teams were meant to be undefeated. I think for Venom Crest, we didn't necessarily have those expectations coming in. They've been able to surprise and they've been able to impress us. And I think this is going to be a great litmus test for the actual level of both these teams, because Lionscreed had such a dominant win in their very, very first game, but feel like they've kind of been trending downward. And whilst Venom Crest did pick up a loss yesterday, I think this is a team that has a lot of room to grow in it. And so if they're able to get a W versus Lionscreed later on, I think that spells great things for their seasons, but much rougher stuff for the Lions.
Yeah.
So I do believe... Yeah, continue.
For me, the fact that Venom Crest have this very particular weakness against Lions Creed makes it very Lions Creed favor. Because when Lions Creed were previously in the LEC and three of their players, in the NLC, and three of their players were previously here running much the same system, they were a brilliant team at making big comebacks in those mid-game parts and in late-game when Baron spawns. These were the guys that were running Aurelion Sol and stuff like this, and even if you got them down to all tier 2s, they knew, we have a collapse now, let's go in on it. People like Kasing, people like Jinjo, Johan Ten, they are very good at setting these things up. It's the big Achilles heel Venomcrest have had this whole time. I think this is their biggest test. If they're able to beat Lions Creed, they can beat absolutely anyone. But I think Lions Creed should get back on the board at the last game today.
And we have some predictions, and the team has been split up in terms of who they think who's going to win. So might as well bring the predictions for today. Yesterday, it was a mess. Let's see what we have in store. Well, Hiprain is still running amok with his predictions. I mean, it's quite fair in game right now. I don't see anything wrong with any prediction, to be honest. I'm like, anybody can win at this point. I don't have any idea.
No, for me, I actually, so this is a funny thing, right? Because so Middlecot's the one that suggested this this prediction format, right, with the point system.
Yeah.
Because of the way the point system is, even though I bet on Verdant, I actually need Verdant to lose. Because if they lose, Aragorn loses 4 of his points, whereas I only lose 1. And if that happens, I actually leap him today. So now, even though I bet on Verdant, I actually need them to lose for the predictions to be correct for me. So thank you, Middlecott, for these wild technicalities that you have introduced to the
not a problem. And like, I'm definitely not enjoying this too far as much because I don't think that I'm doing as well. But I'm recognizing that I'm kind of a little bit further down, so that's why I've kind of put Venomcrest there. I want to agree with Veteran because I feel like that's usually a good idea, but I kind of don't disagree with them. I think that Lions Creed have got some very, very obvious flaws that can be exploited by a team that sets themselves up well, and I think that Venomcrest could be that team. And of course, if I get that last matchup, then I'm basically guaranteed to win the entire split in terms of the predictions.
You keep talking about that, but also you need to deliver your bold or go broke prediction. I have no idea what you brought up. Yesterday it was a beautiful statement from Hiprain. He had to change it 3 times in order to get it correct, and still, I think he's actually wrong. But let's see your bold or broke statement. What did you bring into the table? Okay. Middlecott says, Nord won't win a game under 30 minutes. I like it.
Yeah. I looked at the 2 games that Nord have won today, and they do seem one to the date, and they do seem like a very, very slow team. I don't think this is a team that is going to be finishing bottom half of the table, but it doesn't feel like they accelerate particularly quickly. Quite often they're picking compositions that have got a single form of engage, which limits your ability to transition early leads into objectives and into wins very, very rapidly.
Then you go for Liam Cole. Liam Cole will now win an Affiliates game this split. I mean...
I'm an Aphelios hater. Like, I don't necessarily like the champion, both now and just generally. I think that he gets outranged by a lot of stuff, and it does suck, but DMG look like they are going to be one of the weaker rosters this split, so I think it could very well be a situation where stuff just averages out and Liam Cole ends up with 5 losses on Aphelios and without a win.
The last one was Lions Creed will fail playoffs. I mean, I'll let you talk about it later on. Not now, because we're about to jump into the first game. It's going to be Lightside versus Verdant. So, Veteran, you were saying that you want your prediction to go bad, but is there a way for it to go bad?
I only put 1 point on this because I actually think it is quite likely that this prediction goes bad. I don't give them the edge on this to a massive extent, which is why I've put most of my points elsewhere. Like, for example, on towards Lions Creed, who, you know, Middlecott has bet against in keeping with his bold or broke. This is very... I didn't expect Lightside to even be on a singular win right now, and Verdant's first week was extremely rusty. So I do think that there is a lot of opportunity to upset them. I ultimately give Verdant the edge, obviously. I think they've come off of a fantastic win. I think that first week was a little bit of an aberration for them, and they're only going to go from strength to strength. This is going to sound like a bit of a cope. I do think it matters that they are an all-Danish team. I do think that helps a lot when it comes to building up synergy between each other. There's a lot less barriers to have to push down there. The language thing is a huge deal. Everybody having to speak English as a second language is much more difficult than if everyone's just allowed to speak Danish to each other. So I think they can get over a lot of their teamwork issues, and it was teamwork issues that lost them against Ruddy.
Wait, that's actually a lock. That is a lock.
That is.
Just for Gooby.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is
Not
this...
particularly surprised. He
Yeah.
does play a fair bit of the Aphelios, and the Aphelios-Melio combo is decently strong. I also am a big fan of this Cassante pickup early on for Bucci. I think that he had a really good time in the laning phase versus Banderas in that win. And this Lilia was also really key for Lightside. I'm a little bit worried if they just end up running back the same composition, because we know how that operates, but we are 3 for 3 so far in terms of the champions that were able to get them that win versus LC.
So the good thing about early pick Aphelios, they've banned Varus, Senna is also removed by Lightside, but Lightside have immediately pivoted into heavy range compositions. The downside is it takes a lot to actually pull that off. So if you start going all in on pick and on engage as Verdant, and just assume that Lightside will at some point not be on parallel lines with each other, which is very likely, people misstep all the time, right?
Yeah.
Then that composition falls apart. But if they stay in formation, it's such a hard game to play Aphelios in. The big thing Aphelios doesn't want to play into is heavy, heavy range.
And my question is, the Jhin is still available, and it's so important for most teams, and you have the Jace, you have the Jhin, so more range into that composition. It seems like there's a way, unless Verdant takes out the Jhin as the last ban.
And Ash.
I mean, yeah, I mean, they could opt to do that, but like, generally, Lightside have already got a great setup for poke here, and so a Jhin would definitely not go amiss. You're talking about the Swell Seed going out, the accelerated shot pass. You combine that with a Jhin W, you've basically got a ready-made engage for yourself, and I think for Lightside, they're going to be quite happy with the way that this draft has initially panned out, because Aphelios, Vi, these are champions that are going to end up going forward a lot in the way that these comps look, and I think Lilia is such a great antidote to those sorts of compositions. If you dive on top of her, she pops the Q, she pops the ult, and whoever's there, if they're isolated, they will die.
I think the best thing for Verdant to look to pick now, yes, I'm aware of the jungler on the side of Lightside, but they should honestly look to lock in Malphite. Malphite would be really good here in towards the Cassante. Malphite would give them insta-catch potential towards the Jace. His build path's really easy the later we go in towards the game. We know it's going to be something like Jhin or Ashe. Kate Lux would be an insane thing for Lightside to lock in, and honestly might be one of the best things. If they go with Gnar here, then Verdant suddenly have a lot of the vulnerabilities that we're talking about on the side of Lightside. It looks like they will go with the Gnar. It's more of a classic in towards Cassante. It also has good split push options, decently into both sides. But ultimately, I think if you just want to dismantle Lightside here, probably the Malphite would have been the way to go. We saw it in a Spanish league yesterday. Okay, that is a lot of Zyra Khan.
Yeah,
Bring in the pair.
Yeah, and I think, again, for Lightside, this is building more champions that absolutely thrive if you try and jump into them. Like, I think that Jobu is going to have a really difficult time on this Vi actually finding effective picks. It's not like Verdant have got an incredibly durable frontliner as well that can just stand tall whilst Lightside are sort of peeling back for themselves. So I am very, very worried for Verdant in terms of this composition, because I can't really see as many angles for them to play it out. Yes, they've got a lot of pick tools, but you're going into a comp that it feels like is ready-made to deal with that.
I will slightly disagree. I do think that the Xayah does lack the range that you want in towards an Aphelios, and that could become a big problem. I think every time Xayah wants to do damage here, she is going to be quite vulnerable. There are plenty of low cooldown things to burn her ultimate, like Ari Charm, for example, before we even get into Vi, the potential Gnar engage, the potential green gun picks for the Aphelios. So I am a bit more confident now that my prediction will be correct, which is terrible for my prediction score overall. Thank you, Middlecop.
Last words for this game before we jump onto it. Middlecott, it's on you, but I'll just toss it.
I think it's a 2-0 week for Lightside.
Is that Cassante mid?
I believe it is.
It is.
Okay.
I believe it is. The curveball
That's-
comes in at the last second, veteran.
Nice.
Okay, I think it's time to toss it away. I believe Rudude and also Initialize have a lot to talk about this one. It is the match of the day. It's the first one as well, so it's on to you, gentlemen. Both kind of British. Kind of.
And thank you so much for that kind introduction to what will amount to the match of the day. Danish team versus the Swedish organization. And Lightside yesterday started by playing hardball with Lion's Greed. They've ended that draft with a curveball by flicking that Cassante into the mid lane, into the Ahri to make her life that much more miserable. And it's already looking pretty wild and interesting here in this draft.
It really is. And you know what's even better, Sam, is that coming into this game, we were like, you know what we were going to do is really focus on this mid lane because we were expecting this to be a fairly crucial matchup for our match of the day. And then we get Cassante locked mid lane.
Right.
It's a double-edged sword because it's weird and wonderful in the mid lane. It's worth focusing on a little bit. What it does is absolutely take any enjoyment either of these players are going to have out of the mid lane matchup for the foreseeable future. We're going to have 10-15 minutes where we're just going to be Doran Shield, Cassante hitting creeps, Ahri, I'm sure I can kill this guy, and then he lives, and it's going to be really sad for both of these players, and then they're going to get to team fight and have a load of fun. But the mid lane matchup becomes a little less impactful for me off of this switch.
Yeah, and I do think instead we've got to turn our eyes up perhaps towards Bucci, who we were going to mention a little bit after the MVP performance they put out yesterday versus Lion's Greed, where obviously things were going pretty wrong in the bot lane early on. Johan was down there with his Xin Zhao and getting things rolling down there. And on the other side, Bucci was instead becoming a bit of a menace. Yesterday on the Cassante, today he's been given a bit more of a carry role. He's got the Jason to the Gnar, they've got the Lilia back in the jungle. They are looking to play a very similar style of composition to the one they pulled out yesterday, which is namely keep people in front of the giant artillery line and make those pick options a challenge to make happen, because you've got to get across 2 screens plus with all the range that team just has innately with what they've drafted.
Yep, quite right. And the good part as well, what I like for the switch up as well for Lightside, is that despite the Sion not quite having the range, the pairing with the Rakan, obviously very good to facilitate a Rakan engagement as well. Something that they were kind of lacking throughout the rest of their composition. Obviously it comes with having great ranges that trying to start a fight if you're looking to contest people on those chokes can be a little bit more difficult, but a Rakan is going to be very adept at making that happen. So Dr. Chaos going to have agency and honestly a pretty big set of shoes to fill in terms of being the engagement for this team.
Indeed it is. And of course, what you do have is a lot of non-committal engagement between, like you can throw out the swell seeds, you can try and poke out with Jason and stuff, but you're right, unless, like yesterday, of course, they had the Jhin to kind of add into that. This time, it is going to be a little bit more on the likes of Dr. Chaos to try and follow up on maybe a little bit of something what Tarek or M do to try and make that happen. On the other side, though, it's a bit of a different look again for Verdant, who have gone towards an Aphelios. They've gone the Milio with that to give the Aphelios a little bit more safety, the ability to run that barrier themselves, because Milio can provide all the healing they need and try and survive out that way. But it is really it feels like for the side of Verdant, all on getting Gooby and PlayStation, 2 veterans of this team now, having played there last year as well, to try and make this work and try and be the carries this team requires them to be, especially when you've got setup out of the mid jungle to try and feed them all the kills they can.
And I think that this Aphelios Milio combo is something that we're starting to see crop up quite frequently in the NLC. I'm excited to see its work versus the Xayah specifically, obviously shorter range carry. Gooby should have a decent time of things for the starting of this game. Looking to see whether or not we've got PlayStation ready with those cues to interrupt Dr. Chaos engages. But I also want to talk about the interaction for this Milio as we get later on into the game, because he's got a lot of pressure on that Breath of Life. Really good interaction for the Milio specifically is versus this Lilia. Emp will be able to tell you that Lilia versus Milio is a very sad matchup, because as soon as you press sleep, the Milio immediately cleanse it, even when they're drowsy. So there's a lot of pressure, at least on that capacity.
Yeah. The you want to sleep quickly turns into a Breath of Life courtesy of that R button. It is really, really annoying. And of course, it's not as easy a game to play the Lilia either, because often Lilia really likes it when there's a lot of melee champions trying to run into your team, because it's just so much easier to dance around with your Qs and keep people at range and disengage best you can. And that's not going to be as easy to pull off here with the way things have been drafted. Of course, you can still be a very scary AP carry. We can still see with a lot of those the items that are just around at the minute, the Lilia feels pretty happy about that. But it is going to be a slightly different style of play and what's required out of EMP to make that happen.
Yeah, and already PlayStation getting a little bit adventurous with their Melio pathing. Obviously, with that push in the bot side, they've been unable to do so. Didn't put the ward down, and didn't quite spot out EMP. I'm not sure whether or not they are fully aware of the positioning. But it's good to see that they're already getting a little bit aggressive down on the spot side, using the pressure you expect to get with this Aphelios Melio in the early stages of the game.
Yeah, exactly that, and they're trying to make the most of it as they can. Of course, Aphelios versus Xayah is a matchup we've seen a fair amount of over the last few years. They have been staples of the pro scene, both of these players more than comfortable enough in that matchup, and it is kind of one of those ones that you're not expecting too much like craziness. I mean, it's not like, oh, this is just a champion that beats this one straight out. You can play that matchup both ways around.
Yeah, exactly. And something that I'm kind of looking forward to as we do get a little bit later on into this game, we see him opt into the first strike, actually, in this matchup.
Oh, yeah.
Just because he knows he'll be able to farm a load of gold off of this Cassante. Even if he can't kill him, being able to proc first strike consistently, get some decent trades. And then first strike obviously lends itself to a more assassination-oriented build path as well.
Exactly, it does. And when you're linking up with a Vi, that combo is pretty obvious. You both kind of press R and dive at someone and try and lock down Ragnar. It wasn't supposed to be this crazy. Ooh. Flashes away, stays alive, but Gooby and PlayStation flexing in the bot lane early.
So flash burned from the Xayah. You can see there's a crashing wave, but both junglers are up on this top side and looking to be contested.
Indeed, about to come on through, Q's on through, steals the small walls, now MPXD in danger. Begins to throw out the blooming blows, will begin to try and slow people down. The ward comes on down, and Torak now coming to shield his jungler on the way out there. Nice little look in from Juleblood, but doesn't amount to too much as it stands. And
this is going to be a stolen away Gromp as well, and immediately you see beelining it back down to that bot side. They are pushing in here, this Aphelios Melio combo. But obviously, level 4 Lilia, not the greatest of gankers unless somebody's super overextended. Still could be a gank, though.
Just a quick look in for some trade and a bit of healing back with the likes of that Gleaming Quill, but not too much more. And Gooby now on Gravitum Infernum means even if you do dive in, chances are you just get rooted. Of course, now with all the mana used, Verdant saying, we've got our trades, we've got our shove, time to go for that early bag and reap the spoils of our early game. Jolbu as well here pretty early on as the grubs spawn, takes away one of those, immediately goes in to nab Raptors on respawn, which of course is Lilia's favourite food source, and continue to try and keep that deer down.
And you can see also, I want to take a quick note of Jolbu's build path. Not too frequent that you'll see a Doran's played in a jungler's inventory.
No, that's
really
very true.
Hammering home the early game advantage that you're expecting the Vi to have as soon as this level 6 comes online. Expect the cease and desist to be looking to make a play, probably in and around the jungle. Also an opportunity to have that on the top side. The lockdown that a Vi and a Gnar have are going to be very, very real, especially versus a Jace on the top side, who's typically going to be fairly squishy.
Indeed, that's probably the case. And onto the Dragon goes Jilbur, having nabbed a Grob, gone back to their apps and come straight on over, looking to continue to take the most advantage they can of what they've had. Jilbur being very opportunistic with what they can grab, when they can grab them, quite aware of the timing windows they do have to work with. Aziril comes on over, just throws an auto, but going back away, and early Dragon secured for Verdant.
Yeah, really happy with how Verdant have played out this early game. Jolbu has basically had 3 winning lanes and hasn't put it to waste either. Invading on that top side, stealing away Gromps plus Wolves, getting himself 1 Void Grub, now taking this Dragon as well. He's definitely making the most of his advantage that his laners have given him. I also want to quickly touch on that top side matchup and sort of praise Bucci a little bit, actually, because he's not managed to, or hasn't used his TP yet, but had found a recall over Doxy.
Oh, yes.
He hadn't really lost too much for it, so managed to get a tier, had that stacking up very early on for a play we were very excited for from yesterday. Good to see that that's continuing into this match as well.
Nice route there from Ragnar, but that's the Ghost popped as well, interesting by the Xayah. I think they were probably looking for a little bit more than they found. Step forward again. Gooby, though, a lot of chakrams to his name, is just standing and delivering, and that's just a summoner down. Not too much gain, honestly.
No, now no summoners for the Xayah. They're desperately trying to get this wave under the turret, and you can see them kind of trading their health, also getting a decent amount of to at least force some sort of reset until Ragnar hits level 6. He's very vulnerable in this position, but you can see they've got decent enough on that bot side. There's a real pink ward in the bot side of mid lane as well to help out.
Doxy nearly at Mega. Julbu's around. The shock blast goes wide, but that could now be a lilting lullaby. Over they go. Gonna try to throw, but Torak has roamed first. This could get ugly. Julbu will try and immune some of the CC and does a phenomenal job of it. First blood to Doxy. Doxy now needs to try and run away fast they can, but it's not going to work out. A knockback on Debuchy, who's trying to run away, but a hammer form will not keep him alive. Erol with the passive healing, flashed on, and a Q3 secures a double kill for Torak, who will now try and continue this fight, but Julbu is having none of it. Trying to get a final auto to kill it, waiting for the Q cooldown, and even then can't find it. It's an even trade in the top side, but a bloodbath nonetheless.
Exactly what we wanted to see. Level 6 is hit and these teams go crazy in the top lane. 2 for 2, and it's a really nice distribution for both of these sides. The Cassante going to get a lot more tanky off the back of those 2 kills. The Verdant, both of their solo laners are able to pick up a kill apiece. Now the important factor after it is the fact that Julbu actually able to finish off those Void Grubs from earlier on, so that's 3-0 to begin with this game. And light side, whilst they're getting some decent kills in the mid lane, it's Verdant who are still continuing to just a little bit, slowly, get that neutral objective advantage.
That's exactly it. Need to try and play this out best they can. Alright, they need to keep this one as calm as they can. It is that relatively even-ish early game. Slight gold lead to Verdant, partly off those early aggressive moves they made in the jungle, but we've seen the skirmishing start up. We've seen the willingness both teams have had to try and make things happen, and as it stands, we're not left with too much to work with. We'll have a dragon spawning in about 2 minutes. I believe Emp just picked up a couple of grubs while those were still available. And now we look down towards Gooby and the rest going forwards. Dr. Chaos trying their very best, gets a charm out. There instead is the turnaround. PlayStation pressing that breath of life. Overcomes Julmu and Emp to try and shield this one out. Ragnar taken pretty damn low, but is still just alive. Verdant get the shove, get the aggressive play, and will likely get the reset off this as well, unless Julbu is feeling might more aggressive than he already is.
Should be communicated that this dive not particularly possible with 3 members on the bot side and the right side. Ragnar probably didn't have mana for the ulti, but I don't think that's too much of a concern when you've got a Lilia just lurking, just hovering, making sure that that dive isn't going to come through. And as we look a little bit later on into this game, I'm going to be quite curious as to how we're seeing Verdant deal with this Cassante tank shred on this roster, coming exclusively from Gooby, from the Milio as well, aiding that just a little bit. So the build path for Gooby actually relatively infrequently. You'll see Stormrazor opens if you've got squishy comps. Kraken Slayer not completely dead, but the difference in AD between Stormrazor and Kraken Slayer is very Stormrazor favoured.
Yes, it is. And I think a lot of those energized item synergies have also just felt really, really good. We've seen a lot of people feel like they come online at the kind of the 1-2 item mark rather than the 2 to 3 point, which is where a lot of the crit items are at these days, which just feels rough in terms of your ability to get involved and impact the game in a meaningful way, as Doxy just trading out. I think we'll be seeing those resets come on through as you're all forced to back a little bit further behind us now than perhaps you'd like, because of course we have got Dragon spawning about 35 seconds, and you begin to wonder whether that might be our next point of contest. Malignant complete from Ari, that ultimate cooldown reduction in nice and early. Nightmare will approve, I am sure. Seems to play out for me alongside a Dark Seal. So everything you could ask for, you know?
2 for 2.
Magi second and everything's there, I know. I get this like every day, mate. Like I don't get to escape it. He's in the room next door.
So they go. I understand. Okay,
how is living with Lacott? Just in general.
Well, if we wanted to turn, you know what? That's a time for a later date.
Oh boy.
We play middle
court stories.
We should,
that's true. On stream might be a bit mean. It's true.
Yeah.
He has no way to defend himself right now either.
There is a fridge with comments on it, you know, like quotes that I hear. I think my favourite part of living so far has just been me out of context, just cooking, you know, food. His room's right next to the kitchen. So when prepping meals or anything like that, I'll just hear him on Discord to his friends or something like that. There have been some just out of context sentences which are top notch and have taken pride of place on our fridge. So yeah.
I genuinely thought the step was going to end if we have a fridge, as in like that's what's in the house. And I'm like, I'm really proud of you for having basic necessities.
Well, you say that. We don't have a freezer, so, you know, we'll deal with that one.
There you go.
All right, there's a Drake up.
All in good time.
All in, well, maybe. Verdant are doing good things with their time, let's say, as they are able to take down this second dragon. The Aphelios with these Sharkrams absolutely choose through these neutral objectives, and they've been, honestly, very adept at just bullying out on this bot side.
Exactly that, and they get a hold of the second dragon. They have managed to spawn themselves a very lucky roll on the Drake Soul. Hex Soul, still considered probably the strongest soul in the game, and will be a real problem as Torak buffers through that charm nicely. As Lilia goes to interrupt
Doxy.
the Raptors, and it's a nice engage from Doxy indeed. Bucci desperately low flash! And a solo kill secured on the top side.
That's what we like to see from Doxy up in this top side. One of the plays that I was really impressed by last week. Had a really good Poppy performance, now extending that to an R.
Flash away. Look where Julbu is. Still no idea where the Lilia is. Big damage back with the Moonlight Vigil. It burns with the force of 300 years. All the while shut down on the top side, but it means they know exactly where the Lilia is, and that's not bot lane. Ragnar flashes. Ragnar gets it anyway and makes the 2v3 secure. In comes a teleport from Bucci, who has died and respawned and now looking to punish the bot side PlayStation. Looking like he's losing the console war. Decent chunk back from Gooby, who is trying to get something back, but it's a 1v3 now under the tower. Cannot find the final auto. He's like a barrier. Continue to run forward. Severum, onslaught, cannot make it happen. And Ragnar rock and rolls his way to a kill.
It is excruciatingly close down on the bot side for Gooby, but it's a 2-0 in favor of Lightside, coming away with a very good turnaround there. It was Verdant who engaged in that bot side antics, but it's them that come away with, honestly, a really rough time of things. 3 for 0 in the long trade. We didn't see take down the Gnar, but that did happen off screen. So Void Grubs plus a kill for the Lilia. She's now going to be very happy with her state in the game. Bucci able to teleport in, save his bot side. Ragnar and Dr. Chaos have been kind of getting bullied, but the fact that they're able to find a couple of kills there helps them out no end.
It does indeed. Ragnar gets one on Julbu. Wonderful use of the flash in the ultimate, and then just plays out the rest of it just about alright. Gooby, knowing there's no way out, tries to bully his way through with an onslaught and a barrier and a dream. Unfortunately, it comes to naught, and that bot side that was kind of a really big early point of pressure now falls away. The gold's still pretty damn even, actually, despite the kills going the way of Lightside over the last few moments. But Herald comes across, they've still got 2 dragons, and they're still very much in this game, even if that's a little bit of mud on their face with how things went out. Dr. Chaos stopped from taking that pink ward. Doxy now beginning to throw some autos out themselves.
No
Remember, there's still no ulti, exactly. Doxy nearly at Megadar. They overstepped, and a shutdown going the way of Doxy, who rolls his way to a double.
Trinity Force completed, and this Gnar is here to party. 2 levels up on Ragnar. Like, you are just going to annihilate this Xayah, especially with no Featherstorm. The fact that they take that Rift Herald, they're able to translate it into 2 kills. Very big overstep from the light side, bot side. They do get punished quite considerably, and again, credit to Julbu for making that happen.
I think that might have been a little bit of trading out on the other side of the map. Both of these side lanes very, very aggressive at the same time over the last few minutes, but Verdant get themselves the kills, the shutdowns, and this Gnar that was drafted into what should have been a tricky matchup with the Jace, and with the flex coming on through is now in a very prime position to be really taking over this map. And that also means this Cassante, which nominally should be okay, is now going to be forced against this very fair Gnar, who will be able to just author them down despite the tank items being so strong at this point in the season.
Yeah, and you know, something that Veteran had alluded to in the draft was that this Gnar is going to have great options in the side lane as it gets later and later. The fact that those couple of kills have come through, going to make that side laning a little bit easier and a little bit sooner to come by as well. I do sort of love the knock-on effect more than anything on top side play, because not only did they get the double kill onto Doxy, but they also got the tier 1 turret for Gooby and PlayStation in the mid lane. So they've opened up the map quite considerably. When they've got these 2 Drakes already started, it's going to make setting up for future dragons, setting up for this Hex Soul, even easier if they can just push a mid wave. It means that Lightside are going to have to catch their wave a little bit deeper and then spend more time moving into the jungle and having to clear out things that Verdant can set up faster.
Oh, exactly. They are trying to play this out best they can, as smoothly as they can, and with Dragon in 40 seconds sole point to them, they are going to want to continue the winning ways of their top side and perhaps forget about that slightly awkward dive towards the bot lane. Julbu already beginning to wrap around that mid lane tower, or where it used to be, and Ragnar and Dr. Chaos may be forced to burn a key spell or 2 here. Needs to play it out. Flash Q doesn't quite work, but the ultimate comes out regardless. Trying to play this one out. The charm comes on through. Julbu very deep, but stays alive for now. Ignited. Big run down and take it down, and Ragnar gets that one.
Look at the timing as well. Couple of seconds on that dragon. Jungler falls. PlayStation doesn't want to commit the breadth of life to try and keep the fight alive. Thought maybe if they can get this fight in a 4 versus 5, there's an opportunity with the Melio ulti to make that happen. Doxy's here though, and now a teleport to answer.
Begin to play this one out. Swell Seed lands, but only to Doxy, and they're not going to pull a lilting lullaby quite yet. Look at Irol on the side, looking to find a bit of a pick. Will miss the charm on Ibuchi, who clears out the control ward and takes command of the bush himself. Now they're going to try and trade this one out. Play that blocking roll from Bucci and Torak. Has
They've got
indeed
the gates
respawned,
as
but the
well.
Hex gates mean they can play this one out exactly. Rude dude. In goes Doxy. Gonna try and force people away. Decent Moonlight Vigil gets some damage onto the back end of this. Dragon down to 2.5 thousand gold. Julbu looking to get over the wall. And pretty low as well. Torok forced away. Julbu to the backside onto Bucci. Gets some more damage and they're having to run away. They're desperately low. Julbu goes down, but is the damage done in return too much? Gooby continues to free fire. Several
Flash forward.
onslaught with the Infernum. Sets that bird afire and brings them down to earth. Dr. Chaos about to lose their PhD under the weight of fire. Gooby tanking the turret will likely go down, but no, the shield is just about enough. With the aid of a barrier, they come out 3 for 1.
Ramped up turret, not able to do the job. The Melio shield plus summoner barrier keeps them alive. And Verdant, they keep Lightside interested for just long enough. They knew exactly what the capabilities of their composition at this stage in the game were. We said 4v5, maybe they've got a window to try and take this fight, specifically with that Melio ulti. Cleanses out the Lilia sleep so Gooby can be free firing for as long as possible. And Gooby wasted no time flashing forward, putting out as much damage as possible. Unfortunately not able to finish that Infinity Edge. I'm saying this because there's a Drake fight that could still very easily happen. That Dragon didn't go down in the back end of this. So the Aphelios spike not quite as hard hitting as they would have liked.
But Doxy's got 2 items in a dream, a teleport available. Lightside right back to the scene of the crime. Doesn't look like Verdant are going to be here to fight it in time. They're just saying that's enough. We'll take everything elsewhere. They've got Errol on the top side. They've got the bot lane shoving through mid. And they're trying to get as much on the map elsewhere as they can.
Yeah, and you can see really good sort of adaptation from Lightside as well. They recognise we don't need to commit all 5 people to this Dragon. Let's do what we can to try and defend our top tier 2. And there are already 3 people here.
All the Void Mites come out to play as a result of that charge. Top lane tier 1 did fall all the while that was happening. And Verdant take the trade across the map best they can.
I think they're happy with that trade as well. The fact that, or rather Lightside are happy with that trade. They stopped the Drake stacking, and the fact that they don't lose their tier 2, that's where a lot of the gold is in the turrets, means that they honestly stop Drake stacking and don't lose a right lot for it elsewhere. Nice little movements from Lightside, very quick to recognise where they needed to be. But again, looking forward, we're looking at the difference in these items between our AD carries. You've got Gooby, who's got that Infinity Edge finished up. Now still waiting on Ragnar to finish off what we can presume is going to be that Navori Quick Blades before the Xayah really feels like she's hitting home.
Yeah, exactly that. Has at least got that second item, so between Storm Razor and Infinity Edge is kind of getting towards the point of being threatening. You're right, you're kind of waiting for that third item, probably something resembling a Lord Doms, especially because obviously Errol not going to be the easiest matchup into the Cassandra in particular. May just feel a little bit sad into tanks as it stands right now, and Ari is certainly a victim of that.
So, in your Ari's passively generated wisdom, are we looking at... Okay, well, I was gonna ask you what that second item is going to be. It's been answered for me immediately. How are we feeling about the Crypt Bloom?
I mean, it kind of makes some sense. You're gonna, I mean, the healing's really nice. It doubles up really well with the passive. I know things like Lichbane actually feel really good on Ari right now. Obviously, Medjay still feels pretty good. But Crypt Bloom, certainly a great item on her. And if you're feeling like, actually, I need to be able to cut through the lock here, and actually I'm hitting Cassandra a lot right now, though at least having some way to deal with a bit of that feels kind of nice.
Yeah, I think that one of the maybe underrated parts of Crypt Bloom that comes from it is the obviously Blighting Jewel. There is a bit of penetration built into this item as well, which obviously lends itself to helping out. I also like the idea of just being able to reset that bit easier, right? Ari is a reset champion. You get a takedown when your ulti's active. You're going to get another charge of that Spirit Rush. Getting a little bit of added health when that happens, certainly going to help you out on that charge forward, especially when we're talking about the Verdant composition specifically. They want to, or they're going to struggle really to find engages versus the Jace versus the Lilia. Them going forward with that bit of extra HP, catching up on any of those shock blast pokes that have come through, it really is just going to help out.
Well, that's exactly it, and you are still kind of playing with the fact that you do have this Jace who's gotten to those 2 items. Yeah, it's not been as exciting as you might have liked. There was a couple cool moments, but then we've seen a few of those deaths come on through, but Bucci's still feeling pretty okay in this game. You've still got this Lilia who's edging towards 2 items. In fact, the moment we speak about it, there is that Rift Maker complete. So you do now start to have some pretty scary incidental poke. You start hearing those swirl seeds, you start hearing those shock blasts, and maybe you're feeling less happy about some of those extended fights.
Yeah, and I want to touch on the side lane as well, because it's an element of this game that we touched a little bit on in the draft, and it's now something that is really going to become important because Doxy's got teleport available. We're starting to see Baron up. We're going to see more important Drakes, and he's finished off a Black Cleaver as well. So that side lane matchup specifically for the Cassante gets a lot harder with all the armor that he's built up. That's going to start to get shredded. And you can see Lightside, they're kind of fishing around in this mid lane, seeing if they can whittle their way into a fight. The part of Milio that is obviously very irritating, just his ability to disengage most of these situations. It's like shadowing on the spot side as well. Erol and Doxy, a two-man band, trying to see if they can pick somebody off on their way to answer that bot wave.
Well, indeed. They are struggling a little bit with that map control now. They've got 3 turrets to Verdant and none for the side of Lightside. And despite a stalwart effort against Livescreen, honestly, it's been a pretty good couple punches thrown back today. It's just not amounted to too much. Maybe a pick here on a Julbu would be a good start, though. The jungler about to fall and does so. Baron's alive, and that could now be a real threat. Minotaur Hex Dragon, and that is a monster pick in a critical moment.
Yeah, and now decision time for Doxy. Does he keep going bot lane? Does he try and walk up with the team? Going to save his TP, starts walking to this Baron. And a very quick way to finish. So this Xayah going to do that damage to the neutral objective.
Got to try and play this one out in the 4v5. Dr. Chaos on the flank angle. Moonlight Vigil goes on in, empowered by Infernum. Down to 2,000 HP. Remember, there is no smite available. Is secured by the Lilia. But the damage back is monstrous. Doxy tries to go in, but the flashes get them out of the pit. Dr. Chaos takes a Hex Gate, and Lightside are out scot-free.
It's a heist in the top side of this jungle. 4v5 last time. Verdant were able to collapse, close, and punish Lightside. This time round, there's just a little bit more bravado to the Lightside composition. And they're able to take the Baron, take themselves a jungle kill as well, and get everybody out with Purple Worm.
And you just have to call it out. Julbu, once again, being a little bit too aggressive with the footing. It's not him going in this time, but it's people going onto him. He falls away, and that is a problem. It will be Soul Point probably secure by him as Verdant immediately reset and try and recoup some of the losses they just endured. Taken away, and now you can see Lightside trying to ward away any attempt from Verdant to cut off this wave in the mid lane. They'd like to try and get that one into the tower, but already Doxy going on forwards. Tries to get a pullback on a Torok and goes wide with the Gnar. Be that ultimate down for the moment. Over they come.
There. Remember, engages really only come from Dr. Chaos. It's difficult for this light side composition to do anything other than poke. Doxy jumps forward.
Tries to get a bit more. Doxy now down to the mini Gnar. Torok charmed up, taking out about a half HP, but doesn't go down. Now Julbu into the backline in danger again. The lilting lullaby comes on through and puts Julbu into the long sleep of death. Tries to get a bit more, but PlayStation.
I think that was QSS plus the melee ult used. Erol doesn't find his charm
some damage.
Tier 1 turret probably going to be sacrificed here.
In goes Dr. Chaos trying to get some more. They all retreat. Tier 1 turret is indeed sacrificed and they pull away. A member down, but no one else falling. Gooby, though, throws out a Moonlight Vigil. Ragnar begins to go up into the air, but will get stunned into the wall! And Doxy goes on a killing spree. Garlic helps Gooby go on a killing spree. Torok now tries to run away, remaining unstoppable, gets stunned in place. Does not have enough to work with. And the Baron shove is immediately thwarted. Yes, they get a tier 1. But Verdant are not giving it up cleanly.
Yeah, they get 2 tier 1s. It's just a little bit of miscommunication between the light side boys. Once again, they tried to commit in the mid lane, but Bucci actually teleported up to the top side, trying to really make the most of that Baron, get as many turrets as possible. As soon as that happens, Doxy recognizes it, pulls that engage in the mid lane, takes out Ragnar, who still had Flash, catching him off guard, and finds the AD carry once again. Gooby getting aggressive with it. Very happy to see this Aphelios Melio really popping off.
And we've seen some of Aphelios' struggle across the first couple of weeks of the NLC. Liam Cole, particularly yesterday, not having the greatest time on it. This time around, though, Gooby has been really willing to throw down. Has got the Milio behind him to empower him. Is now at the 3 items. Is at level 13, feeling very, very happy in this game. And it feels like if they are given any free space in these fights, they will eviscerate anyone who gets too close to them.
We've got a little bit of downtime for the next couple of minutes. No Baron, no Dragon left for another couple of minutes or so. So we're expecting our teams to sort of default back to maybe a bit more of a quieter stage of the game. And that's where we're going to get to see Doxy really perform. Hopefully he can be out in that side lane and have a good time of things. I think versus the Jace with that Randuin's finish, he's having a great time. Versus the Cassante as well with that Black Cleaver. It's just good news for Doxy if he goes to a side lane, and the good thing is that with this Randuin, he's also a little bit more geared toward tanking an AD carry, aka Ragnar, and can just be a big front line, and he's kind of pivoting his playstyle accordingly with what his team want. At the minute, it's that bot tier 2. Whether they can take it all down remains to be seen, but they're certainly going to try.
Doxy about to have their Mega Gnar timeout, but this tier 2 is indeed the target. Gooby with the Calibrum, rather. Got enough range right now to at least get that turret very low. Can't quite secure it as Lightside come down in enough numbers and enough force to hold on to that, but just barely.
Alrighty, and the tier
Solid.
2 in the top side actually taken down, so Bucci getting himself a little bit of gold back. Look at the sort of gold disparity between these two. You wouldn't think that a 0-kill Jace is matching the Gnar, who's got 5 kills, 4 assists, but all of the turrets that Bucci's been able to claim, all of that side lane farm, may come and cost him now.
Right, indeed. Gonna try and play this one out. Bucci taken very low, and he has just overshoved and takes Julbu low, but not down. And Doxy claims another, his 6th of the game.
And now look at what Lightside are doing on the opposite side of the map. It's a quick pick, quick little shutdown for Doxy. But Lightside walk into this bot side jungle. They're going to claim themselves a blue buff for the team. They're also going to take down this tier 1 turret. If Doxy can get this tier 2 on the top side, then that's probably still worthwhile for Lightside or for Verdant. Of course, with the Baron spawning in a little over a minute here and the Drake spawning in a little under it, decisions to be made for both of these teams where they're going to focus. Verdant have got that idea, okay, we can get a soul, the permanent buff, going to be very useful for them, but equally, if Lightside take themselves a second Baron, they're not too sure what's going to come from that.
That will be very difficult to deal with. And again, Verdant, despite the fact that the kills are pretty even, the difficulty's been actually just in map control. Verdant have done a fantastic job of getting a lot of those turrets, getting a lot of those dragons, and with the exception of that really unfortunate pick onto Julbu into the Baron take from Lightside, which was a great moment for them, they have really struggled to maintain control of the map, despite the fact that things like the gold have at least been kept relatively close now with that Baron shove.
So it's like Verdant's efforts are toward this top side, are toward that Baron. You can see that the bot side jungle is completely dark for Verdant. They've got no idea what's going to be happening down there, and obviously spawning a little bit prior to the Baron, so there's a window to take that objective a little bit quicker, lower HP, easier to find. Teleport back into that mid lane once again. It's Bucci this time joining his team, really asserting their dominance around the dragon. Looks like Verdant, they're quite happy just to give it up. What can they get in response? It's vision of this Baron, but they haven't started it yet.
Indeed, they aren't quite comfortable enough to do that, and that means Soul is denied. That side managed that one quite well, and it gets into a very tense point of the game. 30 minutes in, you've got 2.5 items on the Lilia, 3 on the Cassante, 3 on the Jace. Zaya's not miles off completing a Lord Doms herself, and yes, we've been talking the praises of Gooby, singing them rather. And yes, Doxy is filthy strong, but it's not like Lightside is shy on the items himself, and they're going to start up the Baron again.
This is definitely
Verdant going to be forced to respond. Here we go, down at 9k.
Behind from Doxy as well, so he's going to have a good angle into this
Where's
fight.
the Mega? Is it even there? No, he's Mini Gnar and nowhere near the Mega Gnar. That means this could be a problem.
Stolen
away! Julbo into the pit, and Lightside looking on the dark side instead, as they are on the wrong end of a heist this time around. Gooby, unstoppable.
Healing.
Bucci flashing away. So much healing, and everyone stays alive. As Lightside hold their head in their hands and lose the big purple worm.
Oh, we thought the first one was a heist initialized. This one is just the absolute worst case scenario for Lightside. They started up the Baron, it gets stolen away, they lose 3 members, and now Verdant with 5 members strong, they might be able to end this game. There are no carries for another 30 seconds.
Wave clear's gone, it's gotta have to be down to some magic from the Lilia, but there's no lilting lullaby, and walking up to this wave would surely be doom. Maybe I'll just have to try as Dr. Chaos goes in, tries to battle dance their way to safety. EMP goes gold, trying to hold on, gets a new build, blooming blows rather, but it matters not a jot. Verdant claim another scalp, they'll get another win, and feel very pleased about it. Yes, Lightside, some solid punches back, but it's just not enough.
Very, very close game, it has to be said. Lightside, despite the fact they were kind of dipping their toes with a gold disadvantage for the most part, it never really felt like they were out of that game. They were always finding good punches, and until they started up that Baron, I was very happy with the sequence of events that had taken place. They'd found themselves a Drake, probably for free, and then they went up to the top side. They could have just dealt with clearing out of the vision and not having to start it up, but obviously they overreached. They got a bit too much in their confidence, and it really backfired in the end.
Yeah, did a little bit there. You kind of have to give some credit, right? They managed to find particularly those picks onto Julbu, particularly kind of some of the defensive plays to cross-map and get stuff back. Lightside, despite their scoreline, I think a lot better than the game win they have shown. You know, they're 1-3 now, but the win was against Lions Queen. They've thrown some good fights there in that game. They managed to get the Baron the first time around. Yes, the second one, little bit greedy, a little bit risky, a little bit desperate, and I'm sure they'll be kicking themselves for it. But I think they can still go away with a lot of positives from this game, despite the result.
Yeah, certainly hoping so. They've got a really good foothold, I feel like, in terms of what they want to accomplish as a roster. I think that there's a lot of returning pieces as well from the Division 2 squad, so they've got themselves a decent foundation to build up from, and we are still at the back end of week 2. We've got another 5 weeks of regular season to come, so it's not all doom and gloom for Lightside just yet. I think the fact that you can take down Lions Creed, then you've got yourselves a pretty good foundation to work from.
Well, in the first derby of Denmark versus Sweden, it is the Danes that come out on top, but we'll be breaking that game down after a quick break, guys, so don't go anywhere. We'll be back with the breakdown and game 2.
At SteelSeries, we make the headsets, mice and keyboards that the world's best gamers win the most with. And we've been doing it since way back. It's up to you how far you go, but whatever you do, go for glory.
Break it down, break it down. Step on the gas, let's get out of town. We're gonna break out and have some fun. We're gonna do what you never done. Oh yeah, yeah. Come on, take your body with you. Need some money with